Heading: A dangerous revelation. The stellar wanderer emerged from the storm belt, its hull scorched but intact. Elias leaned back in the pilot's chair, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. Lyra sat beside him, her violet skin glowing faintly in the dim light of the cockpit. The Syndicate ship was gone, but Elias knew better than to think they were safe. "You said they want information," Elias began, turning to Lyra. "What kind of information are we talking about?" Lyra hesitated, her indigo eyes flickering with uncertainty. "The Syndicate has been experimenting on my people," she said finally. "They're trying to create a bioweapon that targets specific species. I stole data from one of their labs, names, locations, test results. Everything they need to bring their plans to fruition." Elias's jaw tightened. "Genocide in a bottle. And humans?" "Completely immune," Lyra replied. "That's what terrifies them about your species. You're the wild card they can't control." Heading: A call for help. Elias activated the ship's secure communication system. "Computer, connect to frequency Sierra Echo 994. Authorization: Voss, Elias J., former captain, Earth Special Operations Command." After several tense moments, a gruff voice filled the cabin. "This better be good, Voss. I was enjoying my retirement." "Admiral Core," Elias said, relief flooding his voice. "I need your help. We've got proof of Syndicate bioweapon research, and they're not happy about it." Admiral Terran Core, a seasoned veteran of countless battles, listened in silence as Elias outlined their situation. When Elias finished, the Admiral's voice was grim. "Get your ass to Europa, Voss. And watch your six. My sources say the Syndicates deployed their elite hunter teams." The connection closed, and Elias turned to Lyra. "Europa's an ice moon orbiting Jupiter. It's where the Admiral's been hiding out since his retirement. If anyone can help us, it's him." Heading: The hunters close in. As the Wanderer approached Europa, proximity alarms blared. 3 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace behind them, sleek, predatory, and unmistakably Syndicate. Speaking of hunter teams, Elias muttered, firing up the engines. "Hold tight, beautiful. This is going to get interesting." The chase that followed pushed both ship and pilot to their limits. The hunters were good, military-grade good, but Elias had learned a few tricks they didn't teach in any academy. "Remember that immunity you mentioned?" Elias asked, plotting a course toward a nearby asteroid field. "Think it extends to radiation?" Lyra's eyes widened. "You're not serious." "Dead serious," Elias grinned. "Human physiology can handle short bursts of hard radiation better than most species. Want to bet these boys aren't human?" Heading: A desperate gamble. The Wanderer dove into the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks while approaching an unstable pulsar. The pursuing ships followed but more cautiously. "Elias," Lyra said softly, touching his arm. "There's something else you should know." She hesitated, then continued. "The bonding between us is changing me. My biology is adapting to match your radiation resistance. I can feel it." Elias spared her a glance, noting the subtle changes in her violet skin. It seemed to shimmer now, like the surface of a star. "Is that normal for your species?" "Nothing about this is normal," Lyra laughed. "My people have never successfully bonded with humans before. We're making history here, my brave captain." Heading: The Syndicate's trap. The moment was interrupted by a massive radiation surge from the pulsar. While their pursuers broke off their attack, retreating from the deadly emissions, the Wanderer pushed through. Its hull creaked in protest, but Elias's gamble paid off. "Their loss," Elias said, pulling Lyra close. "Now, about these changes you mentioned." Their kiss was interrupted by an urgent message alert. Admiral Core's face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. "Voss, get to Europa now. My security team just intercepted Syndicate assassins. They're not just after the data anymore, they want to study your friend. Something about unique genetic adaptations. Whatever's happening between you two has them spooked." Heading: Europa's frozen surface. Europa's icy surface glittered beneath the stellar wanderer as Elias guided the ship toward Admiral Kor's hidden base. The massive form of Jupiter loomed in the background, its swirling storms casting an otherworldly glow across the frozen landscape. "Something's wrong," Lyra said suddenly, pressing a hand to her abdomen. "I feel different." Elias glanced at her with concern. The changes in her biology had accelerated over the past few days. Her violet skin now had an almost pearlescent quality, and her natural bioluminescence had intensified. "Different how?" he asked, engaging the landing sequence. Before she could answer, the ship's sensors screamed a warning. Multiple heat signatures emerged from beneath the ice, weapon systems powering up. Heading: A fight for survival. "So much for a warm welcome," Elias growled, yanking the controls to avoid a barrage of plasma fire. "Elias," Lyra's voice was tight with emotion. "I need to tell you something important. I'm..." An explosion rocked the ship, cutting her off. The Wanderer's port engine sputtered and died. "Hold that thought, beautiful," Elias said, fighting the controls. "We're going in hot." The emergency landing was more of a controlled crash. They skidded across the ice, leaving a trail of burning debris before coming to rest near a massive crevasse. Heading: A new life. "You okay?" Elias asked, helping Lyra from her seat. She nodded, then suddenly doubled over. "Elias. I'm carrying your child. Our species are compatible in ways nobody thought possible." The bonding, it changed everything. Elias froze, 1,000 emotions flooding through him at once. Then the sound of approaching vehicles snapped him back to reality. "We'll figure this out together," he promised, pulling her close. "But right now, we need to move." They grabbed emergency gear and fled the ship moments before Syndicate forces arrived. The ice tunnels beneath Europa's surface were a maze of crystalline passages and hidden chambers. Elias's military training and Lyra's enhanced senses helped them stay ahead of their pursuers. Heading: A glimmer of hope. The Admiral's backup facility should be 2 kilometers north, Elias whispered as they crouched in a natural ice formation. "If it hasn't been compromised too." Lyra touched his face, her eyes glowing softly in the darkness. "Our child will be unique, the first Humanitian hybrid. That's why they want us so badly. They're afraid of what this means." "They should be," Elias smiled fiercely. "Humanity's got a way of changing the game. And now you're carrying living proof of that." A distant explosion echoed through the tunnels, followed by the sound of combat. Elias recognized the distinctive crack of human military-grade weapons. "Looks like some of the Admiral's people are still fighting," he said, ready to crash their party. Lyra's answer was to pull him into a passionate kiss. "I never thought, when you found me in those ruins, that you'd give me so many new beginnings, a new life, a new love, and now a new future growing inside me." Heading: The battle for Europa. They emerged into a large cavern to find a full-scale battle in progress. Admiral Kor's forces were holding off Syndicate troops from a fortified position, but they were outnumbered. "Time to even the odds," Elias grinned, pulling out his backup plasma rifle. "Stay close to me," Lyra promised, her own weapon humming to life. Their arrival turned the tide. Elias's combat experience and Lyra's enhanced abilities made them a devastating team. The Syndicate forces, caught between their assault and the Admiral's defenders, began to fall back. Heading: A new alliance. "Voss." Admiral Kor's voice boomed across the cavern. "Get your ass in here and bring your lady friend." Our medic needs to see her condition. Inside the fortified position, they found a fully equipped underground base. The medic, Dr. Rin Salas, immediately began scanning Lyra. The fetus is developing at an accelerated rate, Dr. Salas muttered. But it's completely stable. The genetic merger is perfect, almost as if your species were meant to be compatible. That's impossible, Admiral Kor interjected. The Nixians have been around for millennia. How could they be compatible with humans? Because, Lyra said softly, my people were created by the same ancient race that seeded Earth with human potential. We were meant to find each other eventually. Heading, the Syndicate's endgame. The revelation stunned everyone into silence. Then the base's alarms began to wail. Multiple capital ships entering Europa's orbit, an officer reported. Syndicate reinforcements. They're preparing to glass the surface. Elias pulled Lyra close, his hand protectively covering her abdomen. Any ideas, Admiral? Kor's weathered face broke into a predatory smile. As a matter of fact, I do. How do you feel about stealing a Syndicate dreadnought? YouTube video title. Echoes of Eternity, The Syndicate's Shadow, a sci-fi saga of love and survival. YouTube video description. As Elias and Lyra flee the Syndicate's relentless pursuit, they uncover a shocking truth: their bond has created the first human-Ishian hybrid, a child who could change the galaxy forever. Heading, the plan unfolds. Admiral Kor's plan was audacious: infiltrate a Syndicate dreadnought, steal its command codes, and use its own systems to prevent the Syndicate from glassing Europa. Elias and Lyra stood in the war room of the underground base, surrounded by holographic displays of the dreadnought schematics. This is insane, Elias muttered, studying the ship's layout. Even if we get aboard, the Syndicate's not going to just let us waltz in and take control. That's where I come in, Lyra said, her voice steady. The precursor technology in my DNA can interface with their systems. If we can reach the command core, I can override their controls. Admiral Kor nodded. We'll create a diversion. While the Syndicate's focused on us, you two slip aboard and do your thing. Heading, the infiltration. The infiltration team moved silently through the maintenance shaft of the Syndicate dreadnought, Crimson Dawn. Elias led the way, his combat instincts on high alert. Lyra followed close behind, her enhanced senses proving invaluable in detecting guard patrols before they appeared. You're sure about this? Elias whispered, helping her through a particularly tight section. I've never been more sure of anything, Lyra replied, her hand brushing his as they moved. Besides, our little one seems to enjoy the excitement. Elias felt a surge of protectiveness as he glanced at her. The pregnancy, though only days old, was progressing rapidly. Already, Lyra's violet skin shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and her movements were more fluid, more graceful. Heading, the precursor's chamber. As they approached the engineering section, Lyra suddenly froze. Elias, look at these markings. The wall panels were covered in ancient script that seemed to shimmer and shift in the low light. Elias recognized them from the ruins where he'd found Lyra. The precursors, Lyra breathed, her fingers tracing the symbols. They didn't just seed our species, they left us technology. The Syndicate's been using it without understanding it. A deep hum resonated through the shaft, and the symbols began to glow with an inner light. Lyra's skin responded, her natural luminescence synchronizing with the ancient technology. Heading, a hidden power. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a chamber filled with crystalline structures. Is this a precursor control node? Elias asked, his voice filled with awe. Yes, Lyra said, her eyes wide. They built it into the ship's systems. With my enhanced biology, I can interface with it. Belay that, Admiral Kor ordered through the comm, we don't know what that could do to the baby. The baby is exactly why I have to, Lyra countered. Our child carries both bloodlines. The precursors planned this, designed us for this moment. Elias wanted to argue, to protect her, but the fierce determination in her eyes stopped him. Instead, he pulled her into a passionate kiss. "Just come back to me," he whispered against her lips. "Both of you." Heading: The Awakening. Lyra stepped into the chamber, and the crystals responded immediately. Energy coursed through her body, lifting her slightly off the ground. Her skin blazed with light, and Elias could see the child within her glowing in response. The ship's systems began to change, ancient technology awakening after millennia of dormancy. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. "What the hell's happening up there?" Admiral Kor demanded. "Sir," Elias reported, unable to take his eyes off Lyra, "we just found a way to turn their own ship against them. And maybe a lot more." Heading: The Syndicate's Downfall. Through their bond, Elias could feel fragments of what Lyra was experiencing: vast knowledge, technological secrets, and a message left by the precursors themselves. They knew, Lyra's voice echoed strangely. They knew humanity would evolve to become something extraordinary. "My people were meant to guide and join with yours, creating something greater than either race alone." The ship's weapons powered down, its systems now under precursor control. On the bridge, Syndicate officers watched in horror as their consoles displayed data they tried to keep hidden, proof of their genetic weapons program, now broadcasting on all frequencies to the Galactic Council. Heading: A New Threat. But it wasn't over. The precursor technology had one more surprise. As Lyra interfaced with the system, it began upgrading itself, evolving just as she had evolved through her bond with Elias. "The child," she gasped, her hands protectively cradling her abdomen. "It's accelerating the integration, human adaptability, Nixian biology, and precursor technology, all merging into something new." Elias stepped into the chamber despite the warnings, drawn by their bond and an instinct he couldn't explain. The moment he touched her, the energy field expanded to encompass them both. Heading: A Vision of the Future. Their minds merged through the precursor interface, sharing memories, feelings, and a vision of the future. Their child would be more than just a hybrid, it would be the key to awakening similar potential in others, breaking down the artificial barriers between species that the Syndicate had tried to exploit. "I love you," Elias said, both aloud and through their enhanced connection. "Both of you." "We know," Lyra replied with a radiant smile. "We've always known, since that moment you brought me back to life in the ruins. Everything since then has been leading to this." Heading: The Syndicate's Last Stand. The ship's transformation completed just as Galactic Council vessels began arriving in response to the broadcast. The Syndicate's carefully constructed plans were unraveling, their weapons of genocide exposed to the galaxy. But for Elias and Lyra, wrapped in each other's arms within the precursor chamber, the political fallout seemed distant and unimportant. They had found something far more valuable, a love that transcended species, a child that represented hope for the future, and a legacy left by an ancient race that had believed in humanity's potential all along. Heading: The Syndicate's Last Gambit. The Crimson Dawn shuddered under another assault as the remaining Syndicate loyalists launched their desperate final attack. In the precursor chamber, Lyra's grip on Elias's hand tightened as another contraction hit. "Your timing is impeccable, little one," she gasped, her violet skin pulsing with waves of bioluminescence that matched her labor rhythm. Just like his father, Elias grinned, trying to mask his concern as battle stations blared throughout the ship. Through their bond, he could feel both Lyra's pain and their son's eagerness to enter the universe. Admiral Kor's voice crackled through the calm of us, "We've got multiple boarding parties cutting through the hull. They're targeting your location. Seems they want your kid more than they want revenge." "Like hell they will," Elias growled, checking his weapons while maintaining physical contact with Lyra. The precursor crystals around them hummed with increasing intensity, responding to the imminent birth. Heading, a new life amid chaos. Dr. Rin Salas, who'd insisted on accompanying them to the chamber, monitored her portable medical scanner with fascination. The child's energy signature is off the charts. He's actually strengthening the ship's defenses through his connection to the precursor tech. That's our boy, Lyra smiled through another contraction. Already protecting his family before he's even born. The ship's internal sensors screamed a warning. Syndicate troops had breached the outer defenses and were converging on their position. Elias could hear weapons fire getting closer. "Core, we need backup," he shouted into the comm. "Working on it, son," the admiral replied amid the sound of combat. "But our security teams are spread thin. You'll have to hold them off." Heading, a desperate defense. The chamber's entrance cycled open, admitting a squad of former Syndicate soldiers who defected during the earlier battle. Their leader, a burly centurion named Rax, took up a defensive position. "We owe you our freedom," Rax rumbled. "We'll die before we let them touch your family." Elias nodded gratefully, turning his attention back to Lyra. Through their enhanced connection, he could feel their son's consciousness reaching out, already so aware, so powerful. The first explosion rocked the outer doors. Rax and his team opened fire as Syndicate troops attempted to breach the chamber. The precursor crystals pulsed faster, creating a protective barrier around Lyra. Heading, the birth of a miracle. "Almost there," Dr. Salas encouraged. "One more push." Lyra's cry of effort merged with the sound of battle. Elias held her tight, their bodies and minds completely in sync through their bond. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. Their son's consciousness, amplified by the precursor technology, expanded throughout the ship. Every crystal, every circuit, every particle of energy responded to his arrival. The attacking troops suddenly stopped, weapons falling from nerveless fingers as they were touched by a wave of pure potential, the combined power of human determination and Nixian adaptation, wrapped in the ancient wisdom of the precursors. Heading, a new hope. "By all the stars," Rax whispered, lowering his weapon. A new cry filled the chamber, strong, defiant, and unmistakably unique. Elias found himself holding a perfect baby boy. His skin was a subtle blend of human tones and Lyra's violet hue, his eyes already open and aware, shifting between deep brown and indigo. "He's beautiful," Lyra breathed, reaching out to touch their son's face. "Our little Nishian human miracle." Heading, a name for the future. "He needs a name," Elias said softly, still in awe of the tiny being who'd already changed so much. Lyra smiled, her exhaustion evident but her joy overwhelming. "In my culture, we name children after the moment of their greatest potential. I think. Kale. It means bridge between stars in ancient Nixian." Kale Voss, Elias tested the name, feeling it resonate through their bond. Their son gurgled in apparent approval, sending a wave of contentment through their shared connection. Heading, the Syndicate's defeat. Outside the chamber, the remaining Syndicate forces had surrendered, overcome by the psychic backlash of Kale's birth. Admiral Core reported that similar scenes were playing out across the entire battle zone. "Your son just ended a war by being born," Dr. Salas said, shaking her head in amazement. "I can't wait to see what he does for an encore." Lyra pulled Elias down for a tender kiss, their baby secure between them. "Thank you," she whispered. "For finding me in those ruins, for being brave enough to restart my heart, for giving me a new life, a new love, and now this perfect new being." Heading, a new beginning. The precursor crystals pulsed with warm light, creating patterns that danced across their skin. Through their bond, Elias could feel Kale's consciousness already exploring, learning, growing. Their son would be something entirely new, not just a hybrid, but a bridge between all species, living proof that love could transcend any boundary. Heading, beneath the crimson sands. The twin suns of Zephyria blazed mercilessly, their heat distorting the horizon as Captain Elias Voss trudged through the shifting crimson sands. His stealth suit, designed for both concealment and temperature regulation, struggled against the planet's brutal climate. The ruins of an ancient civilization stretched before him, their crystalline spires half buried in centuries of accumulated sand. Elias adjusted the scanner on his wrist, a sophisticated piece of human engineering that had cost him 3 months' salary. It beeped persistently, indicating an anomalous reading approximately 2 meters below the surface. He had seen enough false positives to last a lifetime, but something about this signal was different. It pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost organic. Heading: a discovery beyond time. Deploying his portable excavation unit, Elias began digging. The device hummed to life, its focused sonic waves dispersing the sand in precise layers. 20 minutes later, his breath caught in his throat. There, lying in a perfectly preserved chamber, was a sight that made his heart skip a beat. A female figure lay motionless, her violet skin gleaming like polished amethyst in the harsh sunlight. Her long, wavy black hair cascaded around her shoulders, contrasting beautifully with her sleek, form-fitting black bodysuit. The suit's thin straps and deep neckline spoke of a civilization that valued both function and aesthetic appeal. Elias's medical scanner confirmed his worst fears: no heartbeat. But something about her appearance suggested she hadn't been dead long. His mind raced through his xenobiology training. Many humanoid species in this sector had evolved remarkable survival mechanisms, including the ability to survive clinical death for hours. Heading: a leap of faith. Only one way to find out, he thought, reaching for his emergency medkit. The alien adrenaline compound, compatible with most humanoid physiologies, gleamed in its protective case. Elias had never actually used it before, but he'd heard stories. Taking a deep breath, he positioned the injection device directly over her heart. "Here goes nothing, beautiful. Don't make me regret this." The needle plunged home. For several agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, her back arched, and her eyes flew open, eyes of the deepest indigo he'd ever seen. She gasped, drawing in a desperate breath, and Elias found himself supporting her as she coughed and shuddered back to life. Heading: a new beginning. "Easy there," he soothed, holding her steady. "You're safe now." She focused on him, confusion and wonder playing across her features. When she spoke, her voice was melodious but rough from disuse. You brought me back?" "Guilty as charged," Elias replied with a crooked smile. "Though I'd love to hear how you ended up buried in an ancient ruin." She attempted to stand but swayed dangerously. Elias caught her, noting how perfectly she fit against him. "Careful. Let's get you somewhere safe first. My ship's not far." "Thank you," she whispered, leaning into his support. I was running from a syndicate enforcer. The sandstorm. I thought I'd found shelter, but—" "Lyra," Elias said, lifting her easily into his arms. "Looks like it's your lucky day. I've got a thing for damsels in distress, especially ones I have to literally bring back from the dead." Her soft laugh sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. "My hero," she murmured, and though her tone was playful, something in her eyes suggested she meant it. Heading: the Stellar Wanderer. Elias's ship, the Stellar Wanderer, cut a sleek profile against the darkening sky as they approached. Lyra had regained enough strength to walk, though she kept close to his side. The warmth of her body against his sent pleasant shivers down his spine despite the scorching heat. "Home sweet home," Elias said, palming the entry scanner. "It's not much, but it's got character." The ship's interior was a testament to human engineering, practical yet comfortable. Lyra's eyes widened as she took in the lived-in space, her fingers trailing over the worn leather of the pilot's chair. "Your technology. It's so different," she mused. "Rugged. Reliable. Like you. Elias felt his face warm at the compliment. Let's get you checked out in the medbay first. Then we can discuss your apparent death wish with Syndicate enforcers. Heading, a bond forged in fire. The medbay's diagnostic scan confirmed what Elias suspected. Lyra's biology was fascinating. Her violet skin contained trace elements of crystalline structures, explaining both its beautiful hue and her species' ability to survive temporary death states. Your heart, he said, watching the holographic display. It's actually 3 separate chambers working in harmony. Beautiful design. Lyra's indigo eyes met his. You find alien anatomy beautiful? I find lots of things beautiful, he replied, then cleared his throat. The scan shows you're recovering well, but you should rest. A warning klaxon shattered the moment. Elias cursed, rushing to the bridge with Lyra close behind. The radar showed an approaching vessel, sleek, predatory, and definitely Syndicate. Heading, the chase begins. Looks like your friend found us, Elias growled, dropping into the pilot's seat. Strap in, princess. This is going to get interesting. Lyra buckled herself into the co-pilot's chair, her expression determined. He's not my friend, and I'm no princess. Could have fooled me, Elias grinned, firing up the engines. The Wanderer lifted off just as energy bolts started peppering the sand around them. The storm belt, Lyra suggested, pointing to the massive wall of swirling crimson clouds on the horizon. Most pilots won't follow us in there. Most pilots aren't crazy humans, Elias replied, but he was already plotting the course. Hold on tight. The Wanderer shot forward, sand streaming off its hull as they accelerated. The Syndicate ship followed, closing the distance with alarming speed. Another volley of energy bolts rocked the ship. Elias yanked the controls, sending them into a spiral. Shield integrity at 80%, Lyra reported. Your friend's persistent. He wants what I stole, Lyra admitted, gripping her armrest. Information about their operations. Names. Locations. Things that could bring down their entire network. Elias spared her a glance. You're just full of surprises, aren't you? They hit the storm belt at full speed. The ship bucked and groaned as massive wind shears buffeted it from all sides. Visibility dropped to near zero, but Elias flew by instinct and instruments, threading their way through the chaos. Heading, a connection across the stars. You're amazing, Lyra breathed, watching his hands dance across the controls. I've never seen anyone fly like this. Stick around, beautiful. I've got plenty more tricks to show you. The pursuing ship was good, but in the storm's fury, human intuition and reflexes proved superior to automated systems. After 10 minutes of intense maneuvering, their pursuer's signal vanished from the radar. Elias let out a whoop of triumph. That's how we do it on Earth, baby. The adrenaline of the chase, the thrill of survival, and their close proximity in the cockpit created an electric atmosphere. Lyra's breathing was quick, her violet skin flushed darker with excitement. You saved my life again, she said softly. Why do you keep doing that? Elias engaged the autopilot and turned to face her. Maybe I like the way you look at me when I do. The tension between them crackled like static electricity. Lyra unbuckled her harness and stood, moving with alien grace to stand before him. Her hand, warm and soft, cupped his cheek. Show me more human tricks, she whispered. Elias stood slowly, their bodies nearly touching. Are you sure? There's no going back from this. Her answer was to press herself against him, her lips finding his with unerring accuracy. The kiss was electric, different yet familiar, exotic yet perfect. Her skin was like warm silk under his hands. My people, she murmured between kisses, we bond for life. Are humans so dedicated? When we find the right person, Elias replied, lifting her into his arms, we can be pretty damn dedicated. They barely made it to his quarters, leaving a trail of scattered equipment in their wake. What followed was a discovery of differences and similarities, of alien passion and human desire, of two souls finding connection across the vast gulf of space.